Maybe if you weren't such a burden, none of this would have happened. You think being a single mom makes you a hero? If that line made your blood boil, hit like, share this story, and comment 1 if you've ever been blamed for someone else's selfishness. I never imagined that handing my daughter to her grandparents would be the last time I'd see her smile for days. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting long slats of light across the kitchen floor as I fastened the last zipper on Gracie's overnight bag. Her favorite blue pajamas, the quilt my ex-mother-in-law had sewn when she was born, her allergy medication neatly packed in a labeled pouch, and, of course, Webster, her beloved stuffed otter. I had added a handwritten note to the front pocket. I love you more than pancakes and stars. Be brave. Be kind. Gracie sat on the counter, swinging her legs, watching me with those steady green eyes that always seemed to be older than her 8 years. Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will want to do puzzles with me this time? She asked, tentative. I forced a smile. You can ask. Maybe if they're not too busy. She hugged Webster close. It's okay. I'll be super quiet. Just how they like. My throat tightened, but I just nodded and kissed the crown of her strawberry-scented head. We arrived at my parents' house a few minutes early. Their yard was immaculate, not a leaf out of place. As I rang the bell, I glanced at the car in the driveway, packed with neatly stacked beach chairs and a large striped tote in the trunk. Odd. Denise opened the door, already dressed in khakis and a pressed blouse, her expression tight. You're early. I wanted to go over a few things, I said, lifting the overnight bag. She's got a slight cough, just a seasonal thing. The inhaler's in the front pouch. Alan walked in from the hallway, glancing at Gracie but not saying much. When do you pick her up? Friday morning. I'll be off shift by then. Fine, Denise said. Just make sure she brings her own entertainment. We don't keep toys anymore. I knelt beside Gracie. Remember, just 3 nights. Lisa's out of town, but I'll be thinking of you the whole time. You've got Webster, your bedtime story, and pancakes Sunday when you're home, okay? She nodded solemnly. I'll be good. Extra good. My mother glanced at her watch. We'll keep her fed and alive, Emily. You should get going. I hugged Gracie tightly, holding her a moment longer than necessary before watching her small hand slip into my mother's. As I walked back to the car, I heard muffled voices from inside, my father's low, deliberate tone. We'll tell her after she leaves. I paused by the driver's door, my pulse catching. Tell me what? But I was late. Patients waiting. Gurneys, trauma charts, 12-hour shifts without a pause. I brushed it off as nothing and drove away. The ER was chaos, a multi-car collision, a heart attack in room 4, a disoriented elderly man who tried to leave mid-infusion. For the next 36 hours, I didn't sleep more than an hour. I barely had time to shower between shifts, much less check in beyond the occasional text. My parents didn't reply. I assumed they were busy or annoyed. On the 3rd night, I was just coming off a 12-hour shift when my phone buzzed in my locker. The screen showed the number of Lakeside Elementary. I frowned and answered, my voice hoarse. Hello? Miss Dawson, this is Deborah from the front office. We just wanted to check. Gracie wasn't in class this morning, and we didn't receive any notification of her absence. I blinked. She's with her grandparents. They should have dropped her off this morning. A pause. We haven't seen her today, and no one has called her in absent. My blood ran cold. I turned and sprinted out of the hospital without a word to anyone, still half in scrubs. As I drove toward my parents' house, my mind screamed 1,000 things, none of them coherent. The driveway was empty, the house dark behind drawn curtains. Using my emergency key, I stepped into silence. Gracie's backpack wasn't by the door. Her little shoes weren't lined up on the mat. In the kitchen, I found a single sheet of stationery with my mother's precise cursive. Samantha, sorry, sweetie, we just couldn't take care of her. We've arranged for temporary placement until you're available again. They said you can contact Child Protective Services to make arrangements. Mom and Dad, no contact, no address, no apology. 3 days later, Emily receives a call from Gracie's school. She never showed up. And no one called. No one had stolen my child. They had delivered her. I stood frozen in my parents' kitchen, rereading the note with trembling hands as if another glance might shift its meaning, make it less cruel, less calculated. But every loop of my mother's immaculate handwriting confirmed the unthinkable. They had handed over my daughter like she was an inconvenience. The house was hollow, too quiet, too clean. Gracie's overnight bag was gone, as if she'd never been here at all. My breath quickened as I fumbled for my phone and dialed the number for Child Protective Services. The hold music felt like an eternity. A flat voice transferred me. Again and again. Finally, a woman answered. "This is Andrea, intake supervisor for Region 3. How may I assist you?" "This is Emily Dawson." I managed, my voice tight. "My parents left a note saying they handed my daughter over to CPS. Gracie Dawson. She's 8. A pause. The sound of clicking keys. "Yes," Andrea said carefully. "We do have a Gracie Dawson in temporary emergency placement as of yesterday evening. The file indicates her guardians requested assistance due to a sudden inability to continue care." "They're not her guardians," I snapped. "I am. I have full custody. I was working overnight shifts. They were babysitting." "I understand this is upsetting," she said evenly. "But we'll need to verify your custodial documentation. Can you come into the office immediately with ID and any legal paperwork?" "I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, I was sitting under harsh fluorescent lights, clutching a manila folder with court documents, Gracie's birth certificate, and a copy of the custody ruling from my divorce. Andrea was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, professional and composed. She flipped through my paperwork, nodding slowly. "Everything checks out. Your parents indicated you were unavailable indefinitely." "That's not true. I told them I'd pick her up Friday morning. I gave them a schedule, medications, instructions. They knew I was working hospital shifts." Andrea's jaw clenched, but she kept her tone neutral. "They did not mention that. They claimed to be her legal guardians facing a personal emergency. The intake should have verified, but given the circumstances." She paused. "I want to see my daughter," I said, rising. "She's with a foster family we've worked with for years," Andrea said. "Very stable, experienced. The Carters live just across town. I'll call ahead so they know you're coming." I drove on autopilot, heart slamming against my ribs. What had they told her? That I'd abandoned her? That she was too much? The Carter house was small and yellow, with cheerful flower beds and wind chimes on the porch. A woman with kind eyes opened the door before I could knock. "You must be Emily," she said gently. "I'm Lisa. Gracie's in the backyard with my husband. She's been quiet." I stepped into the backyard and spotted her immediately, sitting on a picnic blanket, rolling a ball slowly between her hands. When she looked up and saw me, her face crumpled. She ran so fast she nearly knocked me over. "Mommy!" I dropped to my knees, crushing her into my chest, holding her like I could stitch us back together with sheer force. "I thought you weren't coming." She sobbed into my neck. "Grandma said you needed a long break." "What?" I pulled back slightly to look her in the eyes. "Sweetheart, I would never leave you. I was working, just for a few days. They said you had something important and that maybe you didn't want me anymore." Her voice cracked. My blood went cold. I turned to Lisa, whose expression was sympathetic but cautious. "When they dropped her off, what did they say?" "They claimed they were her primary caregivers and that you'd disappeared, emotionally unstable. They never mentioned that you were her legal mother or returning soon." Gracie buried her face in my shoulder again, and I hugged her tighter. Later, after we settled her with a blanket and a bowl of macaroni, Lisa gave me space to call CPS. Andrea picked up on the first ring. I told her what Gracie said, what Lisa confirmed. "I'll make a note in the file," Andrea said. "This may escalate beyond child placement into legal territory. Potential fraud, misrepresentation, abandonment." As I hung up, my phone buzzed again. A notification from Instagram. My sister Melissa had tagged our parents in a photo. All of them in matching Hawaiian shirts, standing on a beach at sunset. Cocktails in hand, grinning. The caption? Surprise trip. So grateful for grandparents who drop everything for family. Ohana. Blessed posted less than 24 hours after they had dropped my child into the arms of strangers. I scrolled further. My father snorkeling with Jackson. My mother helping Madison build sandcastles. A dinner photo with drinks by torchlight. A photo of their hotel confirmation sat proudly in Melissa's story archive. Booked 3 months ago. They hadn't just suddenly been unable to care for Gracie. They had planned to abandon her. When Gracie finally dozed off in my lap that evening, her small hand still curled around Webster's matted paw, I kissed her forehead and reached for my phone. Natalie picked up on the first ring. I want to press charges. If they thought I'd protect the family name over my daughter, they didn't know me at all. I hadn't cried since picking Gracie up. I hadn't screamed, cursed, or begged for an explanation. I simply got to work. At 7:03 a.m., I opened my laptop and created a folder labeled Case, Dawson v. Dawson. I dragged in screenshots of the Hawaii trip, dated posts, Melissa's comments, a beachside dinner reservation. I added photos of my mother's handwritten note, the CPS placement documents, and Gracie's school attendance log showing her absence. I included my original text thread with Denise confirming the pickup date. At 9 o'clock sharp, I met Natalie at her firm's small office downtown. She looked like she hadn't slept either, but her eyes were sharp. "This isn't just morally disgusting," she said, reviewing the materials. "It's criminal." "Can we prove intent?" I asked, sliding a printout across the desk. Melissa's Instagram story with the resort booking from 3 months ago. Natalie leaned in. "Oh, we can prove it was premeditated. We'll file complaints under child abandonment, custodial misrepresentation, and providing false information to a government agency. CPS already has a record. What we need now is a clear timeline and public accountability." She tapped her pen twice, then looked up. "Emily, you understand this could get loud." I nodded. Let it. That afternoon, I turned my living room into a command center. Papers spread across the dining table, my laptop flanked by highlighters and sticky notes. Gracie was curled on the couch watching cartoons with Webster in her lap. Every few minutes, I glanced over just to confirm she was really home. There was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Eleanor, my former mother-in-law, holding a plastic container of chicken soup. "I heard," she said simply. I stepped aside. "Come in." She set the soup down and faced me with trembling hands. "Emily, what they did to Gracie, what they did to you is unforgivable. And if you need anything, I mean anything, I'm here." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you." "She's my granddaughter, too," Eleanor said. "Not by blood, maybe, but by love. And family isn't biology, it's who shows up." Later that night, while Gracie slept in her own bed for the first time in days, I sat at my desk uploading every document Natalie requested into a secure drive. Then I reached out to someone I'd met through work, Detective Mark Rains, who handled pediatric assault cases at the precinct. He answered on the second ring. "Emily, you okay?" "No," I said, "but I have something for you." We met the next morning at the CPS office where Andrea joined us. I handed Rains a folder marked Intent to Abandon, Family Evidence. He flipped through the timeline, the reservation, the screenshots of Alan claiming guardianship. "We've got enough to contact Hawaii PD," he said. "They won't be arrested yet, but we can open an interstate coordination." "They think they're untouchable," I said. "They're not." I walked out into the morning sun, tension easing just slightly for the first time in days, until my phone buzzed. A message request from someone I didn't know. The thumbnail was a blurry video. A child sitting on a cot, legs swinging, face pale and frightened. Message: "Is this your daughter?" She She looks terrified in this foster care clip. It's going viral. I opened the video. It was Gracie. That first night, her wide eyes, the way she clutched Webster, the silence, no narration, no music, just a single caption. She was left like this. I felt something ancient and raw claw up from my chest. Within minutes, I opened Twitter. Justice for Gracie was trending nationally. Emily turns off the screen and whispers, "They're not ready for this." They packed beach towels and sunscreen. I packed timelines and screenshots. While they posed in matching Hawaiian shirts for sunrise selfies, I handed off a folder labeled Federal Coordination, Child Abandonment and Fraud to Detective Mark Rains, who in turn sent it down the line to Hawaii. Every flight confirmation, Instagram post, and notarized CPS statement was time-stamped, organized, and irrefutable. There was no wiggle room, no plausible deniability. I didn't need to be in Maui to watch it all unfold. At exactly 7:05 a.m., Hawaii time, Detective Barnes of the Maui Police Department stood outside Suite 742 at the Oceanside Resort and Spa. He was flanked by 2 uniformed officers and a hotel security manager, all captured by the quiet blink of hallway surveillance. The knock was firm. 3 times. Inside, Alan Dawson stirred in his bathrobe, annoyed. He opened the door halfway, confusion flickering across his face. "Alan Dawson?" Barnes asked. "I'm Detective Barnes with the Maui Police Department. We need to speak with you and Marilyn Dawson regarding a matter involving your granddaughter, Gracie Dawson." Alan blinked. There must be some mistake. He began closing the door. The officer placed a foot between door and frame. "This is a formal investigation initiated by Connecticut authorities regarding the potential unlawful transfer of custodial care across state lines. I need you to step back and get your wife." By now, Denise appeared behind Alan, still in hair rollers, her mouth falling open. "What is this?" "Where is your daughter, Emily Dawson?" "She's in Connecticut." "Why?" Melissa burst into the room from the adjoining suite. "Mom? Dad? What's going on?" Bradley stood behind her, brows drawn tight. Jackson and Madison peeked from the hallway, eyes wide with the thrill of adult chaos. "Why are the police here?" Melissa demanded. Denise's voice wavered. "It's nothing. Samantha is just overreacting." "She prefers Emily," said the detective, neutral but direct. "And she's filed multiple complaints supported by CPS and her attorney, including custodial interference and providing false information to a state agency." Melissa's eyes widened. "Wait, what did you tell them? You said Emily knew about this arrangement? That she agreed to it?" Denise's lips parted, but no words came. "You told me she was fine with it," Melissa snapped. "That you were dropping Gracie with a family friend." Alan tried again. "It was just for a few days. She's sensitive. She requires too much attention. It was safer." "Safer?" Melissa's voice turned sharp. "You dumped her into foster care because you didn't want to miss a vacation?" Guests were starting to gather, curious eyes peeking from their doors, phones subtly lifted. One woman down the hall began recording. "Sir, ma'am," Barnes said, "we'll continue this conversation in private. Hotel management has provided a conference room. You are not under arrest, but we need a full account of your actions and statements from the past week." Denise began crying, real tears now, the kind that come not from guilt but from shame. "We didn't mean harm. It's all been taken out of context." "No one takes foster care out of context," Barnes replied. The Dawson family, once polished and proud, now trudged down a carpeted hallway lined with whispers and camera flashes. In Connecticut, I sat at Gracie's bedside, brushing her curls back gently as she blinked sleepily up at me. "Will they go to jail?" I didn't need them in handcuffs. I needed them to finally hear her voice. Gracie sat cross-legged on the plush rug in Dr. Monroe's office, a small clipboard in her lap and a purple crayon in her hand. She was drawing stars, big ones, bold and sharp, scattered across the paper like she was trying to create her own sky. Dr. Monroe watched her carefully from across the room, his voice gentle. Gracie, can you tell me about the day you went to stay with the other family? Gracie didn't look up. Grandma said it was a surprise adventure, that Mommy had to go away for a while, for work, but maybe because she needed space from me. I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't speak. Dr. Monroe had made it clear from day one, Gracie needed room to say it her way. They packed my things, not all of them, just a little bag. She paused, pressing the crayon harder. They said Mommy was busy with hospital things, that I might be gone for a long time, that sometimes moms just need to get rid of kids. She finally looked up, but I didn't do anything bad. I didn't even forget to say thank you for dinner. I blinked back tears. You didn't do anything wrong, Dr. Monroe said, steady, and your mom didn't send you away. Gracie nodded slowly, but her hand trembled as she added more stars. Later that afternoon, I met Natalie at her office. The Hawaii grandparents case had made its way into every local news station by now. Blurred hotel footage, the viral video of Gracie in foster care, even old PTA members weighing in anonymously online. I hated the circus, but I understood the value. Silence had protected them for too long. We're going ahead with the charges, I told Natalie as she opened the folder. Not for vengeance, but because I want this on record. I want them to know they can't do this to her, or to anyone else, and get away with it. She nodded. It's the right call. We'll submit under child abandonment, custodial fraud, and falsifying information to government authorities. Connecticut is already coordinating with Maui. How long will it take? I asked. There's a process, she said. But this is strong and public. That night, the local evening news aired a segment titled Grandparents or Guardians. The anchor recapped the story with footage of the police outside the resort and blurred visuals of Gracie's viral video. I muted the sound halfway through. The truth didn't need volume. It just needed light. After I put Gracie to bed, 3 books, 2 songs, 1 extra hug, I lingered at her door. She had begun humming again when she brushed her hair. She had giggled during lunch when I spilled orange juice on my sock. The damage wasn't gone, but there were cracks of joy, light filtering through. I sank into the couch with my laptop and typed a simple sentence in the timeline summary I was compiling for the DA. June 9th, Gracie, age 8, told her therapist, "They said Mommy needed to get rid of me." I stared at the sentence for a long time, then hit save. Natalie called the next morning. Her voice was calm, focused. We've got the filings ready. Interstate coordination is set. The DA is reviewing and expects to move quickly. I glanced at Gracie, curled on the rug with Webster and a half-built Lego rocket. It's time, Natalie said. Some people rebuild legacies. I redefined what family meant. The courtroom was too cold. Or maybe it was just the nerves under my skin. I sat beside Natalie at the plaintiff's table, papers neatly arranged, but my hands clenched under the table. Gracie was in the hallway, coloring beside a court-appointed counselor, unaware that her words were about to shape the outcome of everything. Alan and Denise sat across the room, their expressions carved from stone. My father wore the same charcoal suit he used for every important occasion, and my mother had pulled her hair into a severe bun. They looked like people trying to shrink themselves into decency. It didn't work. Judge Rivera entered. Gray curls, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that silenced the room without saying a word. She reviewed the case with calm precision, flipping through page after page of exhibits, photos, timelines, legal affidavits. I've reviewed the filings. The evidence leaves very little to interpretation, she said. Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, you knowingly placed a child into state care under false pretenses, misrepresenting your legal authority and your daughter's availability. The court finds this a deeply troubling breach of trust. My mother opened her mouth, but the judge held up a hand. No excuses. You had every opportunity to act differently. You chose a vacation over a child. There was a pause. Gracie Dawson has requested to make a statement. Judge Rivera continued. With her mother's consent, I've allowed it. Briefly. The counselor walked Gracie into the room. She wore her favorite purple sneakers and a shirt that said Future Astronaut. Webster was tucked under one arm. She stood on the small stool the court provided for child witnesses and faced the judge with a composure that shattered me. They said I was too much. She began quietly. That Mommy might not want me anymore. The room didn't move. But I know that's not true, because Mommy came back. She always comes back, and I didn't do anything wrong. Judge Rivera blinked slowly. Thank you, Gracie. That was very brave. My daughter returned to the hallway, clutching Webster like a shield, while the judge finalized the ruling. The court accepts the proposed plea deal, she said. Mr. and Mrs. Dawson will serve 6 months probation, undergo mandatory family counseling, and have no unsupervised contact with Gracie Dawson unless granted by the court. My father said nothing. My mother wept silently. But their sorrow wasn't mine to fix. Outside the courtroom, the sky was crisp and blue, and Gracie ran ahead toward the car with a bounce in her step. Natalie placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. You did it. No, I said, watching Gracie twirl in the sunlight. She did. 2 weeks later, we celebrated Gracie's 9th birthday. No big party. No banners or rented ponies. Just the people who had shown up and stayed. Eleanor, Natalie, Dr. Monroe, and Gracie's favorite classmate from school, who brought a Lego set and a glitter card that read, You're awesome. The cake was homemade, chocolate with space-themed frosting, constellations piped in silver, a rocket ship candle in the center. Gracie leaned over the cake, eyes shut tight. They said I was too much, but I know I'm just enough, she whispered to herself. I stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder as the flame flickered. Make a wish, space explorer. Even the most polished lies eventually crumble under the weight of truth. What began as quiet betrayal beneath family smiles ended in a courtroom where the real legacy was rewritten not in guilt, but in courage. Justice doesn't always come with fury. It can arrive as a child's voice reclaiming her worth. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. Comment 1 if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal and the relief of reclaiming your power.